What is your definition of strength? Is it the ability to move a small car's worth of iron from point A to point B? Or is it the ability to command your own body with such absolute unwavering precision that you bend gravity to your will? Today, we are looking at a clash of two completely different worlds, a story of mass versus mastery, of explosive power versus isometric endurance. This is the story of the Shake Restraint, the day a massive gym bro shared a stretch studio with a professional ballet dancer, talked a little too much trash, and learned a humiliating, agonizing lesson about what it really means to have strong legs. Welcome back to the channel, guys. If you enjoy deep dives into biomechanics, fitness philosophy, and stories of epic gym encounters, hit that subscribe button right now. Let's get into it. Today's story takes place at a high-end athletic club, the kind of place that has powerlifting platforms in the basement and pristine eucalyptus-scented yoga studios on the top floor. And look, here comes Tank. Tank is your quintessential dedicated gym guy. The guy is a walking mountain of hypertrophy. He tips the scales at a lean 240 pounds. He drinks his intra-workout aminos from a gallon jug. He wears tank tops that barely contain his vascularity, and his leg days are the stuff of local legend. We are talking deep, brutal squats and leg presses where he literally runs out of room on the machine's pegs and has to have his training partner sit on top of the sled. Tank is strong, undeniably, explosively strong. It was a Tuesday evening, post-leg day. Tank's lower body was flooded with lactic acid, completely destroyed from his high-volume, hypertrophic onslaught. He grabs a dense, spiked foam roller and drags himself into the group fitness studio, a room entirely lined with mirrors and wooden bars, to roll out his massive lats and quads. The room is empty save for one other person in the far corner. Enter Julian. Julian is not a bodybuilder. He doesn't look like he belongs on the defensive line of an NFL team. He is lean, standing about 6'1", weighing maybe 175 pounds. He's wearing fitted athletic joggers and a plain white tee. But if you look closely, and I mean really look, you'd notice the terrifying density of his musculature. His calves look like carved mahogany. The vastus medialis, the teardrop muscle above the knee, bulges through the fabric of his sweatpants. His legs don't look like puffy balloons of sarcoplasmatic fluid. They look like braided coil steel cables. Julian is a professional danseur, a principal ballet dancer for a major city company. He has spent the last 2 decades treating his body like a finely tuned, high-performance sports car. Tank is grunting, groaning, and popping joints, making a show of his massive recovery process. He notices Julian silently stretching in the corner. Tank, feeling the testosterone of the post-workout pump, decides to strike up a conversation. "You stretching for the treadmill, bro?" Tank calls out across the room, his voice echoing off the mirrors. Julian slowly rises from his split, his movements fluid. "No," he repeats politely, his voice calm and even. "Just finishing up some conditioning work. I have a performance this weekend." Tank scoffs, adjusting his backward baseball cap. "Performance? Like theater? Dance?" "Ballet," Julian corrects him, walking over to his gym bag. Tank lets out a low, rumbling laugh, the kind of laugh that dismisses an entire discipline in one breath. "Hey, no disrespect, man," Tank says, oozing that classic arrogant gym bro condescension. "Cardio is cardio. It's good for the heart, but you guys ever think about doing some real strength training? Slapping some plates on a bar? I just moved 1,200 pounds on the leg press out there. Dance is cool for being flexible, but it's not exactly a real strength sport, you know? The room goes completely silent. The ambient noise of the gym outside seems far away. Julian stops packing his bag. He turns around and looks at Tank. He doesn't look angry. He doesn't look offended. He looks amused. Julian walks over to the center of the room, standing a few feet from the massive bodybuilder. 1,200 pounds, Julian says, his voice soft. That requires an incredible amount of fast-twitch muscle fiber. It's impressive explosive power. Damn right it is, Tank grins, puffing out his chest. But, Julian continues, his eyes locking onto Tank's, moving a weight from A to B is only one expression of strength. It relies on momentum. It relies on external support. You were sitting in a chair, pushing a sled. What happens when you remove the chair? What happens when you remove the momentum? What happens when the weight is just you? Tank chuckles, crossing his massive arms. Bro, I can squat 5 plates. I carry my own weight just fine. Let's test that, Julian says. Julian offers a challenge. It's not a squat contest. It's not a jump. It's a fundamental ballet move called a développé. The premise is simple, almost insulting to a man of Tank's stature. Julian explains the rules. You stand on one leg. You bring your other knee up to your chest. Then you extend your leg perfectly straight out in front of you, parallel to the floor at hip height, and you hold it there, completely unsupported. No leaning back, no holding onto the wall, just pure isometric suspension. First one to drop their leg or bend their knee loses, Julian says. Since you can leg press a small car, holding up your own leg should be a vacation. Tank actually laughs out loud. He's looking at a guy 70 pounds lighter than him, challenging him to lift his own foot in the air. All right, Baryshnikov, Tank smirks, stepping onto the hardwood floor in his socks. Prepare to get humbled. They stand side by side, facing the mirror. Ready? Julian asked. Up. Tank shifts his massive weight to his left leg. He hoists his right knee up, his heavily muscled thigh looking like a tree trunk. With a grunt, he kicks his right leg straight out. For the first 5 seconds, Tank is smiling. He's staring at himself in the mirror, admiring the massive, sweeping curve of his outer quad. The leg is locked out, hip height, easy. But at 8 seconds, the smile falters. Here is the biomechanical reality of what is happening to Tank. His muscles, specifically his rectus femoris and his iliopsoas, the hip flexors, are highly adaptive to explosive concentric contractions. They are trained to fire violently to move heavy weight and then immediately rest during the eccentric phase. They have massive muscle bellies, but very poor capillarization. They are starved for oxygen in a static hold. At exactly 12 seconds, the fatigue sets in, fast. At 14 seconds, the shake restraint begins. It starts as a minor tremor in Tank's kneecap, a vibration. Suddenly, his vastus lateralis begins to visibly spasm. It looks like there is an alien moving underneath his skin. His brain is screaming at his motor units to recruit more muscle fibers, but his fast twitch fibers are already failing, burning out like cheap spark plugs. What the? Tank grunts, his face suddenly turning beet red. Tank tries to compensate. He leans back, breaking the vertical line of his spine, trying to use his abs to hold the leg up. But it's no use. The hip flexor, unaccustomed to prolonged isometric tension, decides it has had enough. At 18 seconds, a violent, agonizing cramp seizes Tank's upper thigh. It feels like a hot knife twisting into his groin. With a loud yelp of genuine pain, Tank's leg collapses. It drops to the floor like a lead weight. He doubles over, clutching his hip. panting heavily, his face a mask of shock and agony. He lasted exactly 18 seconds. Tank, gasping for air and massaging his cramping muscle, looks up into the mirror. Julian is still standing there, but Julian hasn't just held his leg at hip height. While Tank was fighting for his life, Julian had smoothly, effortlessly raised his extended leg higher and higher. Julian's leg is elevated to ear height, a full 170-degree vertical extension. And the most terrifying part? He isn't shaking. He isn't sweating. There is not a single millimeter of tremor in his entire body. His leg is locked in the air as if it were resting on an invisible table. The timer is still ticking. 45 seconds. A minute, 10 seconds. Tank stares, his jaw practically on the floor. How? He wheezes. How are you doing that? Julian, completely motionless, his breathing slow and rhythmic, begins his master class. He doesn't even sound out of breath. What you are experiencing, Julian says calmly to the mirror, is the difference between sarcoplasmic hypertrophy and true neuromuscular control. You train for maximum force production over a duration of maybe 3 seconds. You build massive engines with tiny gas tanks. My world, Julian continues, his leg still hovering flawlessly by his ear, the timer passing the 1 minute 30-second mark, requires extreme slow twitch muscle endurance, isometric stabilization. When I hold this leg, my hip flexors, my core, and my glutes are locked in a continuous, unyielding contraction. My nervous system is efficiently recruiting motor units in a relay, allowing some to rest while others fire. It takes years of agonizing repetition to teach the body to endure this kind of static gravity. Tank is silent. He is watching a man who weighs 70 pounds less than him defy the laws of physics that govern his own body. At exactly 2 minutes, Julian lowers his leg. There is no relief on his face because he wasn't struggling. He turns to Tank, who is still rubbing his cramped thigh. Moving iron is a fantastic achievement, Julian says, his tone devoid of any arrogance, just stating a pure, objective fact. But do not ever mistake the ability to push a heavy weight for the ability to master your own physical vessel. Explosive power is a hammer. Isometric control is a scalpel. They are completely different beasts. Julian grabs his gym bag, gives Tank a polite nod, and walks out of the stretch studio, leaving the massive bodybuilder alone with his thoughts, his cramping hip, and a deeply shattered ego. The lesson here isn't that bodybuilding is bad or that ballet is superior. The lesson is that fitness and strength are incredibly specific adaptations. Tank had built a body designed to move massive loads for short durations. He optimized his fast twitch fibers. But in doing so, he neglected the deep stabilizers, the slow twitch endurance fibers, and the isometric strength required for true bodily autonomy. Julian, the danseur, had forged legs of coiled steel through tens of thousands of hours of static holds, micro-adjustments, and gravity-defying endurance. Strength isn't just about what you can lift, it's about what you can control. If you guys enjoyed this breakdown of the Shake Restraint and the biomechanic clash between the gym bro and the danseur, do me a massive favor. Hit that like button, it really helps push this video out in the algorithm. Subscribe to the channel if you haven't already so you never miss our deep dives into the wild world of fitness and human performance. And I want to hear from you down in the comments. What is the most humbling experience you've ever had trying a different style of training? Have you ever stepped out of your comfort zone and realized you weren't as strong as you thought? Let's get a discussion going down below. Until next time, keep training hard, keep training smart, and remember, Sometimes the heaviest weight you can lift is your own leg. See you in the next one.